Ed Miliband has been outlining his plans for the NHS. He's promised an emergency recruitment drive for 1,000 new nurses if his party wins the election, claiming the Tories have caused a staffing crisis. Meanwhile, more than 100 small businesses have declared their support for Ukip. In a letter published in the Daily Express, the signatories say they are greatly encouraged to find a political champion in the party. There are still severe delays on the Central Line after an engineer's train derailed at Holland Park. 4 staff members suffered minor injuries when it came off the track last night. A police investigation also means there are no trains between Holborn and Leytonstone currently. Peter McNaught, the operations director for the Central Line, has dismissed claims it could have been caused by a lack of maintenance.
I actually visited the site this morning myself, went down onto the track. I can tell you that the track is in very good condition down there. There's no issue of maintenance. The damage was minimal.
Stay with LBC for the latest travel updates. Black cab drivers are beginning a protest in central London, claiming the regulated taxi trade is under threat. Members of the United Cabbies Group are gathering on Oxford Street, unhappy about illegal minicab touting. Len Martin, chairman of the group, has told LBC he's getting worried for his future.
The legitimate private hire trade that are trying to make a living themselves and taxis are both being severely disrupted by the touting activities. And unless Transport for London get more enforcement officers on the street, the future of the London cab trade is at risk.
Italian investigators say the captain of a migrant ship which capsized in the Mediterranean, killing hundreds of people, mistakenly rammed his boat into the merchant ship that had come to its rescue. The 27-year-old Tunisian has been charged with reckless multiple homicide. Isabella Cooper from the EU Border Control Agency Frontex has been speaking to LBC.
Border control is not the panacea for managing of migratory flows. What we need is a really global response. We have to stabilize countries of origin from which the migrants flee. We have to absolutely stabilise countries of transit and cooperate with them.
She'll be speaking to Sheila later this hour. 3 people have been arrested in Coventry in 2 separate investigations on suspicion of terror offences. 2 17-year-old boys were detained on suspicion of preparing to travel to Syria to engage in terrorism. A 39-year-old man is also being held, suspected of fundraising for the purpose of terrorism. Prince William is on unpaid paternity leave ahead of the birth of his second child, which is due any day now. The Duke has completed the first phase of air ambulance helicopter pilot training earlier than expected and will return in June. LBC weather, another dry and sunny day for London and the South East, highs of 19 degrees. Fine, dry and sunny for most of England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Some low cloud for central and eastern areas. Mostly fine for Scotland with sunny spells. Some drizzle further north. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Rosanne Wynne.
Remembering every phone number you've ever called is not impressive. What is impressive is remembering to call 118434 whenever you need a number. 118434. It's the handy number for handy numbers.
Calls cost 76 pence plus £1.53 per minute from a BT landline. Other networks vary and mobiles cost considerably more.
Landlords. Direct Line guaranteed to beat any quote for the same cover. Can your landlord insurance do that? Search Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. LBC's Election Call.
Hello, good afternoon to you. This is Sheila Fogarty on LBC. Now, every week during the campaign, we're giving you the chance to question a senior politician about the issues that matter to you. We'll be hearing from all the main parties as Britain decides. Today, we're joined by Suzanne Evans, who's Ukip Deputy Chairman, and at some point that music will stop and allow us to speak to you, Suzanne. I'm pretty sure I was meant to talk for longer than I did, but you're very welcome. Good to see you.
Good afternoon.
Suzanne Evans, Deputy Chairman of Ukip. Afrin in Colliers Wood wants to ask you a question. We'll go straight to Afrin.
Oh, hi there. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good
Hello.
afternoon, Susan. Well, I actually personally went through a bit. I experienced what these people are experiencing in many ways, because I personally travelled from Kosovo to England through Albania and Italy. So, and I travelled using a speedboat from Albania to Italy. So, I in many ways I sort of know how these people are feeling.
This was during the Balkan Civil War, I presume, was it, Afrin?
That's correct. Yes, and I understand that one of UKIP's policies or ideas is to, I don't know, send them back, isn't it, or try to straight away send them back, isn't it?
You're asking about the migrant crisis in the Mediterranean, Afrin, is my understanding.
That's correct, sorry.
That's all right. Well, I should have said, it's fine.
Yeah,
Afrin,
no, well, actually, it isn't. And Nigel Farage, interestingly, when the whole crisis blew up in Syria, was the first politician to actually say that we must do more to help refugees who are fleeing this war-torn area. And the other politicians, actually, were against it. They was very firm. David Cameron was very firm that he didn't want to take in any Syrian refugees. And I'm actually very proud that it was my party and my leader that actually changed attitudes on that in a very public way and actually managed to get Syrian refugees into Britain. And I think we take the same view now. We sign up to the United Nations conventions. We must take our fair share of refugees. We absolutely. And Nigel has said again this morning that he feels that particularly the Christian population in these areas, for whom there is no other nearby country where they could seek safe haven, they should be coming here to Britain. And we're talking probably about a few thousand, I would guess.
And we haven't yet taken the numbers that we committed to from Syria.
No, we haven't. We've taken, 90 or something like that? It's not nearly enough, really. We could be doing more. And of course, it all goes back to the fact you arguably the West has a role to play in this awful crisis in the first place. Gaddafi was a dreadful man, but what's happened since we've ousted Gaddafi, the situation is far, far worse. And looking, they're playing on the TV screens the scenes in the studio here, Afrin, and they are heartbreaking. And we must take our full role in this. What is actually a global crisis, I think.
Afrin, do you? Sorry, fire away. I'll ask you my question in a minute. You go ahead.
How about potentially building refugee camps somewhere in Europe? I think Europe and Britain are rich enough to help more than they're actually doing at the minute.
I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. We have a massive foreign aid budget, 12 billion pounds a year. It's going, I think, very often into the wrong sort of projects. We know a huge amount of it is siphoned off into corruption. A huge amount it goes through middlemen who are actually making a profit out of it. This is something that we should be diverting our foreign aid to, I believe, as a matter of urgency.
Afrin, can I ask you?
Yes.
Can I ask you? Do you? What is your understanding of UKIP as a political party and its attitude to migrants? What's your understanding of that? Because you mistook it at the beginning of your question to Suzanne. So just give me a sense of what the word UKIP conjures up for you.
Well, I know obviously the government has to make difficult decisions. I don't like UKIP's policies on Europe. First of all, I think they're totally wrong in so many ways.
Any particular reason why you think we should stay in the European Union?
Well, with regards to the European Union, I think it's to our benefit. It's to Britain's benefit. And even if we come out of the European Union, I think we will have to still comply or accept the free movement of people, just like Norway. I've been to Norway. I've got friends that live in Norway, and basically Europeans, British people, anybody can actually go and live and work in Norway just like in Britain.
Well, that's
so even if.
That's partly because Norway are also a member of EFTA, which again buys into that free movement of people ideal. And I think it's UKIP's position that we would not join EFTA.
I see, but I think Europe will not agree to that. Europe will not let you have the cake and eat it. If you wish to have an open trade with Europe, they will request for the rights of people of free movement of freedom of movement. They will. It's a given.
Do you know what, Afrin? I think as we are the world's fifth largest economy, we are far more important to the European Union than the European is to us. We are their biggest customer, actually. So I beg to differ. I think we would still be an extremely important outfit. We take back our seat of the World Trade Organization, and under World Trade Organization rules, the European Union would not be allowed to not trade with us. It's forbidden under their rules.
Afrin, thanks for your call in Collier's Wood. Just before we go to Peter in Eastbourne, what's your view of those who look at the picture pictures. You're quite right, they're heartrending to see. That doesn't mean everybody will agree on what to do about them. But what's your view of those who look at them and say, not my problem, their problem, they're acting illegally, they take the consequences? I've actually had a tweet to that effect this morning.
Right, well, I personally think that's far too harsh. I think there are no easy answers to the situation. You've got to take refugees, you've got to stop the trafficking, you've got to control borders, and ultimately you've got to find stability in those countries which are riven apart. And sadly, I don't see any easy answer to that.
Do you think there should be legal channels opened up at the moment for these many thousands who, while we wait for that global response, those many thousands who are making that crossing? This is what the spokesperson for Frontex has said to us, and we'll play that interview in about half an hour.
Frontex worries me because I think Frontex is trying to set itself up as the replacement for our own Royal Navy, actually. And if you look at the Italian Navy as well, who are actually doing quite a good job, as I understand it, controlling this problem up to a point. But now Frontex has taken over. The Italians are saying they're simply over. Actually, they would like, I think, to have more freedom
that's because
to deal with it themselves.
Well, that's because they've got 2/3 less of the money swishing around the...
Well, that's also part of the problem, and we could get into a whole new debate there about debate and defence spending and so on and so forth, which has been cut.
Frontex's job isn't to... isn't primarily anyway to save lives in the sea. It's to control borders, but they are having to save lives in the sea.
Yes,
and go
quite
out
right
and look,
too.
and quite right too.
And quite right too.
So what would this global response look like in your view, if there was one?
Well, as I say, there are no easy answers, and it's not going to happen overnight, is it? And I think key to that is trying to tackle ISIS, and unfortunately that will be a long-term project, and unfortunately there will. And I go right back to what I said at the beginning. It's a shame we ever felt we had the right to interfere in the first place.
But would you object to legal channels opening up at the moment?
In legal channels, you mean what specifically?
Legal channels to legal ways of making that voyage.
Making the voyage. It's a tricky one, that, because if you do that, you automatically say to potentially millions of people, it's okay, come over. It's very hard. So we have to somehow draw a line between our humanitarian responsibilities and not encouraging people to try and make what might be a fatal journey.
OK. Peter in Eastbourne, what did you want to ask Suzanne?
Oh, hello, Sheila. Suzanne.
Good afternoon.
John Major made an attack on the SNP this afternoon, and Sturgeon's reply was that it would be an affront to democracy. I believe if the SNP got anywhere near running this country, it would be the end of democracy. Do you agree?
I completely agree with you 100%. The one thing I cannot understand about Nicola Sturgeon is that she is determined to see independence for Scotland, but she's also determined to stay in the European Union. And that, to me, is a complete oxymoron. I just don't get it.
Why?
She seems to think that Westminster
That's
has...
the whole point of independence, isn't it? You get to decide things
Well,
for
it
yourself.
is, but you're not independent while you're a member of the European Union. And she thinks that Westminster is dictating to Scotland too much. I mean, the EU will dictate far, far more. And anyway, I think they're going to have huge logistical problems if they try and do that. No, I think Nicola Sturgeon is quite clearly trying to call the shots. I think I read somewhere, I'm not sure if it's true, it might just be one of those things I picked up, that there are, it's not much bigger than Yorkshire. Can that be right? I don't know, in terms of population, I'm not sure about that. But obviously Scotland is just one part of the Union, and it's not right at all that one part of the Union should hold the rest to ransom.
What if the SNP has a really strong showing in the election, in a democratic election? Isn't it right that they get a concomitant level of influence afterwards if there is a hung parliament? That is pure democracy.
Well, one of the things that we say, Sheila, is that Parliament needs to be reformed and the House of Commons needs to be reformed.
But
so
it isn't
the parliamentary constituencies must be challenged and changed so that they are more representative of the numbers of the population. And at the moment, they are way out of step. So again, you can have a relatively small population in Scotland holding the rest of the UK, which has much larger numbers to ransom.
All of the talk has been, I'll come back to you, Peter, I haven't forgotten you, all of the talk has been about a Labour SNP coalition. Let's talk briefly about coalitions. Suzanne Evans of Ukip here on LBC, taking your calls 0345 606 0973. Who do you want to go into coalition with?
I don't want to go into coalition with anyone. I think we've long said that you can't get a cigarette paper between the two parties. We were launching our small business, Labour and Conservative, yes, we were launching our small business policy today, and I said, both Labour and the Tories have completely let small businesses down. There is nothing for them in any of their manifestos. We are the party of small business, and I think we would be doing all our members, our subscribers, our voters a disservice if we decided to go into bed with one or other of them. We would rather be the real opposition against both of them in Parliament.
So the morning after the election, if there's a hung Parliament and the process of, the conversations begin anyway, in whatever form, Ukip will very pointedly step back and say,
we won't
let us know when it's over.
We won't step back completely. There is a middle way between stepping back completely and forming a coalition, and that's called a confidence and supply arrangement. So you make sure that you support whoever the government is on the basis of getting the budget through, for instance, which is something that's very important. You can't have the Treasury grind to a halt. And we would do that in exchange for an immediate in-out EU referendum.
Well, your leader said more specifically he would support the Tories if he could get a guarantee that it wouldn't be a stitch-up this
Absolutely.
referendum.
And unfortunately, if you get a Tory...
What would a stitch-up look like?
Well, a stitch-up would look like probably what you're going to get. I mean, David Cameron has only said there'll be an EU referendum if he has a majority, if he's Prime Minister of a majority Conservative government anyway, which quite clearly isn't going to happen. That's always been his get-out clause. And I think a stitch-up would be where you allow every EU resident in Britain to vote, and not just British nationals. They would probably want to lower the voting age, and the question would be goodness only knows what, like it would be a stitch-up, I think, like it was in 75.
OK, thank you to Peter for his call. Peter in Eastbourne, hope you were satisfied with the answer you got. You're listening to LBC's Election Call, and the time is 2:15. Suzanne Evans, Ukip Deputy Chairman, is with us.
I'm Amy Solomon in the LBC Travel Centre. On London's tubes, the Central Line remains suspended today for a police investigation. Now it's between Leytonstone and Holborn, with severe delays on the rest of the line after an engineering train derailed this morning at Holland Park. Problems also continue in central London because of a demonstration. There are solid queues on the eastbound approach to Marble Arch. That's a demonstration heading down Oxford Street towards St Giles Circus. So Park Lane's particularly slow approaching Hyde Park Corner. Also on the North Circular in London, it's queuing in Edmonton westbound. That's from the Great Cambridge Interchange to the Clockhouse Interchange. In Norfolk at Norwich, the A47's blocked westbound still. A trailer's overturned, so it's stationary on the approach to that one. And southbound on the M5 in Worcestershire, you're down to one lane between Junction 5 at Droitwich and Junction 6 at Worcester, so it's very slow on the approach and past the scene. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in half an hour.
This is LBC.
5 years ago, I was running the family's petrol station. My sister Mel said we were in trouble because we were selling more sausage rolls and coffee than petrol. Which got me thinking, what if I turn it into an American diner? I spoke to Lloyds Bank because I heard they approve 80% of loans. We worked through my business plans and they said yes. Well, it was pretty hard work to start with, but it's going great now. Even if the odd customer still comes in expecting a sausage roll.
Lloyds Bank, for the moments that matter.
Lloyds Bank plc, lending subject to status. 80% relates to period April 2012 to November 2014.
When you're looking for a new car, choice is everything, which is why more and more people are thinking big and buying clever at the UK's biggest independent used BMW dealer, Big Motoring World. We have over 1,000 cars in stock and on site, so you get the choice and you get the job done. It's big and it's clever. Find out more at bigmotoringworld.co.uk.
Big Motoring World.
With over 1 million online reviews posted every minute, catching every negative review about your business and stopping them all from spreading is like trying to put out a fire with a water pistol. Unless you're us. Reputation.com will track and report every single online review from the sites that matter so you can respond quickly and easily. To find out more about how we can help manage, improve and protect your brand's image online, visit Reputation.com.
Passports.
Check.
Sunglasses.
Check.
Phone charger, camera charger, tablet charger?
Check, check, check.
The American Express Preferred Rewards Gold Card is packed with travel benefits.
Special discounts with Hertz?
Check.
2 airport lounge passes?
Check, check.
Hotel upgrades?
Check.
Hotel upgrades subject to availability. No annual card membership fee for the first year. £140 from second year onwards. Terms and conditions apply. For details, search Amex Gold.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Unbelievably, the official inquiry into the 2003 Iraq War might now not publish its report this year. You did hear that correctly. This is the Chilcot inquiry.
I'm really quite shocked, but then given the number of delays we've had so far, there just seems to be one delay after another.
We told you about that couple with their 4 children who'd gone from Slough, and it was thought they'd try and get off and fly to join ISIL or IS. Well, now that couple and their children are being held in Turkey.
Very much the wife and children won't have a choice in the matter. They're conditioned to be submissive to the head of the household. Their propaganda machine as well is so prevalent and so powerful. It's appealing to so many people.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Every weekday morning from 7 on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, with over 2,000 hotels worldwide.
Suzanne Evans, Ukip Deputy Chairman and candidate in the election in Shrewsbury and Atcham.
That's right.
Yes, it's that last bit I keep forgetting. David is called from Enfield. Hello, David.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon,
Hi.
Suzanne. Suzanne, if elected, what will UKIP do to make housing affordable for the average UK family?
OK, well, we have a good housing policy. In fact, I think the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors has praised our housing policy. And what we want to do is create a brownfield site development revolution. At the moment, houses are being built, we think, too much on green fields, on agricultural land that we need for our security. And we could actually build 1 million affordable homes on brownfield site by 2025 if we put our mind to it. So what UKIP plans to do is to offer grants of £10,000 per unit to developers to enable them to clean up the land, because this has been putting them off in the past. So we will remove that barrier and get them building houses that way. We also want to bring empty homes back into use. There are far too many empty homes out there that could be put back into use, and we would encourage local authorities to put empty home strategies into their local plans. And of course, it's also for us very much about stopping demand, because housing is all about demand and supply. And since 1997, we've had 9 million immigrants coming into the country, and that's not net migration, because of course lots of people have left the country as well. But migration is running at about 500,000-600,000 people a year now for the last 3 years. So by having an Australian-style point system to control immigration, be less pressure on housing markets, and then prices should inevitably fall a little, or at least stabilise. David?
Yeah, my concern is that living in London, the average house price here is £500,000. Which means if you put £50,000 down on a mortgage, you need to be earning £90,000 to qualify for a mortgage, 5 times earnings. So how is an adjustment in prices going to come about to reduce prices to a level that the average person can afford to buy a house?
It's incredibly difficult, isn't it? And I have my sympathy. I couldn't afford to buy my flat in London now, not a hope in heck. I just couldn't do it. I think it is about supply and demand. You can't obviously, I don't believe, force house prices down in any way. People's life savings depend on them. They have mortgages to pay off. You know, I remember those terrible days of negative equity when people were really struggling. So I don't think you can do anything to actively alter the market. But I think what you can do is control the supply end. And I think UKIP's very much in favour of putting more money back in people's pockets so they have more disposable income. We want to take everyone on minimum wage out of tax altogether. We want to cut taxes quite sharply for those middle earners. And I think it's those two things that we have to focus on. But I don't think, unfortunately, there are any magic remedies.
Thank you to David for his call. Graham in Chingford. Hi, Graham. What did you want to ask Suzanne Evans?
Hello, Suzanne.
Hello.
Hello there. Yeah, what I'd like to know, please, Suzanne, is a couple of things. First of all, when UKIP are elected, what is your policies with regards to the Independent Living Fund, which, as you know, the Tories are going to close at the end of June, and also regards to autistic adults and the so-called bedroom tax, what's UKIP going to do about that?
The disability living that's been replaced by the personal independence payment, isn't it? Is that right? It's not terribly familiar with. Have I got that right, David? Was it David?
Graham, sorry.
Graham, I'm so sorry. Graham was the previous one. I mean, well, certainly let's start with the bedroom tax, because I do know about that. We would absolutely scrap it. We see no justification for it whatsoever. I've heard so many heartbreaking stories about people who have children died and then they get charged the bedroom tax. Or I know one of my colleagues is working with a case at the moment with a man who's married to a woman who suffers very badly from incontinence, but according to the bedroom tax, they have to share a bedroom because they're husband and wife, so they get charged. There's all manner of discriminatory attitudes to it, and it's just absolutely wrong. So we'd scrap that completely. And in terms of welfare, we believe very strongly that there should be a benefits cap, because we don't believe in a benefits lifestyle. But we also very strongly believe that safety net should be there, and the way in which it's they shouldn't have to jump through hoops to get it. So that's why we'd also want to scrap the ATOS style work capability assessment. Arbitrary and very unfair. One of our other policies is very much to support carers. We think it's ridiculous that people who have to work reduced hours or put their own career on hold to look after somebody who's ill or disabled shouldn't at least get the same amount of money as a job seeker. So we'll up the carers allowance to the rate of job seekers allowance and put an extra £572 in the pockets of carers.
Graham, I hope that was helpful. Thank you for your call. Can I ask you in a little bit more detail something about something you said earlier? You said, and your party leader has said as well, that you would support the Tories if, in Nigel Farage's terms, you were guaranteed there wasn't a stitch-up. Can you be more specific about exactly what the Conservatives would have to offer in terms of a supply and demand agreement that would just be really clear now to us about what that would mean, what that would look like?
Well, Nigel's actually written about this in his most recent book, and he says it's got to be as soon as possible. It's got to be equal funding on both sides. I can't remember it, but those of you who can remember 1975 might recall that the government produced a booklet about the EU referendum. I think it was something like 7 pages of pro-EU propaganda and only 1 page with the anti-side who leave Europe. So I think the question for us would be very much have to be focused on, do you want Britain to be a free, independent, sovereign democracy? Because that's what Ukip stands for.
So it would be the nature of the question that would be the red line moment.
And it would be who is it eligible to vote as well, because we don't doubt for a moment that David Cameron would say 2 million non-British EU residents in the UK would be eligible to vote, and we don't think that's right, that people from other countries should be voting on Britain's future.
There are plenty of people who would argue that question you've just put favours your view.
Well, there you go. We're in politics to make a difference, to make some change. We have to lobby for what we want to.
So is David
He
Cameron.
Certainly is, and that's why there'll be some argy-bargy, won't there?
What does as soon as possible mean as well? Because he's essentially set a date.
Well, I think the Lib Dems, as part of their coalition agreement, chose to have the AV referendum, and I'm trying to remember, I think it happened within the year, didn't it? So I think at least within the year.
Within the first year of any parliament?
Absolutely,
Okay.
if not sooner.
Steve has called from Ashford. Hello, Steve.
Hello there, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hope you're both on this nice sunny day.
I'm not experiencing
lovely,
much of it,
actually,
sadly,
yes.
locked in a studio. But
It's very nice out there in Leicester Square.
That's going on to my question, actually. I've got 2 questions for you, Suzanne. Basically, as UKIP, if you go into coalition, I'm self-employed and have been since 2009, since being made redundant. However, every year I have the same problem, and that's trying to pay my tax.
Yep.
And that may be unusual for people to actually be inquiring, as we're not Starbucks or anything like that. Some of us want to pay our tax, but it's so difficult to do. What have you got plans? How can you improve that tax payment?
So it's the fact, is it? I mean, I've been self-employed for almost all of my life as well. So it's the fact that you suddenly get this huge tax bill, is it, at the end of every
That's
year,
right.
and you're not exactly sure how much you're going to pay. I do understand exactly what that's like. Yes.
It's also getting on the self-assessment site. Every year I've had to re-register, for want of a better word,
Right.
and I'm waiting I'm again waiting for my code to come through. So even though I've got until October, etc., I just like to get the house in order and know what I'm going to be paying, etc. But like you say, it's that big lump sum sometimes. But also, what can you do as a party to help the self-employed?
Well, as I say, I've been self-employed myself, and I'll just give you a quick to answer your question, what I used to do was whenever I got any income in, I would put aside any VAT that was payable immediately into a separate bank account, plus 10 to 15% of the rest. And I usually found at the end of the year that would just about cover my costs. So there you are, a tip. I don't know if it's any help, but there you go. In terms of self-employed, we were launching our small business policy this morning, and we are very much the party of small businesses, and as I say, as someone that's done it myself, I'm very keen to see that happen. It's about, for us, it's about one of the things that we want to do is, I don't know if you ever have a problem of late payments from your suppliers or your clients, but that's something that we have found actually stymies a lot of small businesses. Cash flow is everything, and if you're not getting your invoices paid, and particularly not if it's by a big company, that's grossly unfair. I always say nobody should be a banker for their customers and their clients. So we would introduce a new scheme that would certainly stop that from happening. We're also introducing a cut, effectively, in business rates. So we will extend the 20% small business rate relief to properties with a rateable value of £50,000 instead of £12,000. So that's going to help up to 90% of small business owners, potentially 1.5 million people. But do have a look at our manifesto, because there's lots of other things in there too for small businesses and sole traders.
And just before I let you go, Suzanne Evans, Ukip's Deputy Chairman, who's been with us for the past half hour here on LBC, I want to ask you, in the light of a little spat between you and the Labour candidate in your constituency, I want to ask why you think Labour doesn't seem to be able to shake off claims from some, not all clearly, but from some quarters, that you are a racist party at heart.
Well, I'm really angry about this. And in fact, I've done a tot-up today because I do keep a list of sort of nasty incidents, how can I put it, in the other parties.
Sounds a bit menacing.
Well, it does sound a bit menacing, but on the other hand, I think it's quite menacing because UKIP's peccadillos, UKIP's sins get reported quite widely. So far, there are 291 on my list so far this year. So what are we, April the 21st?
Racist-related ones.
Racist, homophobia, paedophilia, criminal activity, fraud. 291 peccadillos by the Liberal, Labour and
Proven
Conservative. All reported in local newspapers, but not necessarily in the national press. And I think that is the difference. But UKIP for some reason wants to makes headlines where the other parties don't.
But is it a little depressing that your defence against those claims that you're a racist party are to say the other parties are full of racists, homophobes, paedophiles, criminals and fraudsters?
I see your point, Sheila. You know, every single party now is saying that they want to control immigration. Every single party now, even the Labour Party, although they don't want a referendum, is saying, yes, we need to reform the European Union. Two major issues that the firmly believe would not be talking about at all were it not for UKIP. So despite having attacked us and being extremely nasty to us, they're now trying to actually copy and steal our thunder. So there you go. I think that speaks volumes. We've been labelled for saying certain things when they say exactly the same things. Oh, it's fine. It's not acceptable.
I want to see your little black book at the end of the election, OK? Thank you. You've been listening to LBC's Election Call, where today you heard from UKIP Deputy Chairman Suzanne Evans. Tomorrow, Boris Johnson will join Nick Ferrari at 8:30 in the morning to take your calls. We'll be hearing from all the main parties each week in LBC's Election Call as Britain decides. And for a full list of candidates running in the election, just go to lbc.co.uk. It's 2:32. Let's get some headlines now from Ros Unwin.
A protest by black cab drivers in central London has brought Oxford Street to a standstill. Members of the United Cabbies group are demonstrating against illegal minicab touting. Meanwhile, underground, severe delays on the Central Line continue after an engineer's train derailed at Holland Park last night. Separately, a police investigation now means there are no trains between Holborn and Leytonstone. Stay with LBC for travel updates. Ed Miliband has been announcing Labour's